Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rabbi Asaf Aharon Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom uvracha. In this week's Parsha, Parshas Tzav, one of the korbanos that are introduced, one of the sacrifices that are introduced, is the korban toida, the thanksgiving offering. Rashi, when explaining this, says something that seems to be a bit striking. He says the following. He said, this korban, this sacrifice is brought by someone who experiences a personal, and here's the point I'm trying to make, miracle, a person miracle. And he gives the four classic examples of what a korban toida is brought for, either one who crossed the sea, traveled to the desert, released from prison, or recovered from illness. But the truth be told, question number one is, none of these actually involve something, wow, supernatural, a real miracle. There's no splitting of the sea, no fire came down from heaven, nothing. Okay, they're a bit dangerous situations, but people survived these things many times. Why is Rashi calling it miracles? A seemingly unrelated question also can be asked on the Gemara in Brachos. The Gemara in Brachos of Zayin Amud Beis, 7b, talks about Leah. When Leah had her fourth child, the pasuk says, "Hapa'am odeet Hashem." This time I will thank Hashem. The Gemara makes a big deal out of this word. This time I will thank Hashem, and the Gemara says that she was the first to thank Hashem. But the question begs itself. At first glance, she was not the first to thank Hashem. Noach brought sacrifices to thank Hashem for miracles he did for him. So did Adam HaRishon. So what does it mean when the Gemara says this is the first time someone ever thanked Hashem? And what happened to the other three kids Leah had? She didn't thank Hashem for those? That was not a miracle? Some of these questions asked Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld in his Sefer Chochmas Chaim. And he answers it with an unbelievable fundamental principle that we can all learn from, especially in the days we are living in today. We tend to associate the word miracle with all kinds of events that we experience or we see that go against nature and are visible to be open miracles that break all the natural rules. But really, there are so many other things that are suitable to be called miracles. Even nature itself is one big miracle. Every time we arrive safely going through a place that's a bit dangerous, that's also a miracle. The fact that a baby is born, the fact that we can breathe, that's also a miracle. I think the main point over here is that once we get used to a certain situation, even if it's miracles, that cools down the sense of awe, of wow, this is a miracle. Even if we think just about rain, water literally falls from the sky. Yes, we all learned in science and biology how things work, and it kind of makes sense to us because those are the laws of nature Hashem put in this world. But at the end of the day, the first time a kid sees it's raining, that's unbelievable. If you walk into a place that's never rained before and we see rain, we would say that's an unbelievable miracle. The problem is, but we got used to that situation. So we just move on in life and say, yeah, we're used to that. I want to suggest that the same is true for the people that were in the Midbar for 40 years and experienced the man falling from the sky, literally bread that tastes like anything you want. Maybe the first time they were all in like, wow, that's unbelievable. But once they got used to it, that was normal for them. It was just like it's raining. In short, what I'm trying to say is that I think getting familiar with a certain situation quietly steals away our sense of wonder, of a miracle that Hashem is continuously doing for us. This, perhaps, is why Rashi ensures that he calls all these situations a miracle, because it is a miracle. We just have to take the time during the day and realize that all these things are miracles. Even the fact that we wake up in the morning are miracles. Yes, there are different levels of miracles, but nonetheless, being able to cross the sea on the desert is a miracle. Now, let's go to Leah. The Gemara in Brachos, Daf Zayin Amud Beis, says that Leah said, wow, hapa'am odeet Hashem. What happened over here? So the Gemara explains to us what happened. Leah saw in Ruach HaKodesh that there are going to be 12 Shvatim coming from Yaakov with 3 different women. So she did a very simple cheshbon, calculation, that the right amount, the fair amount that every mother should have 3 boys. 3 times 4 is 12. The second she had more than what was destined for her, a 4th boy, that triggered her thinking, wow, every baby's a miracle. Even not only this 4th that I'm getting that perhaps I didn't deserve, that I just deserved 3, but even every baby that I have, that's a huge miracle. So she is the first in history, Chazal tell us, that she suddenly realized, even having a baby, I have to thank Hashem even for the things that seem natural, which is a miracle in itself that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put the natural rules and laws into effect. She came to that realization and she thanked HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is not the type of thanking that we saw by Adam Arishon and Noach. They were thanking Hashem for an obvious miracle, something that goes against the laws of nature. But Apam Odet Hashem, this time, Leah realized, wow, every baby is a big miracle. This is what Chaim Sonnenfeld wants to answer. With that, he also answers another question that he asks, and that is, why is Korban Toida, this Thanksgiving offering, brought in Parshas Tzav and not Parshas Vayikra? The main Korbanos were brought in Parshas Vayikra. It should be more fitting to be there. And he answers that because this Parsha is more associated with the Kohanim, as the Parsha starts off, you see it's mainly geared for the Kohanim. There are some other Korbanos in the Parsha, but it's mainly geared for the Kohanim. And he says a very nice idea. The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says the Kohanim every day witnessed so many open miracles in the Beis HaMikdash that it could easily be that they would get used to the situation of these open miracles and not be in awe anymore, not in amazement. And hence, the Korban Toida is brought dafka in this parsha that has a lot of laws and rules relating to Kohanim so that they ensure that they continuously have the sensitivity of a miracle that Hashem does for us. This idea also sheds light on the famous question asked in Hanukkah. We all know that one of the big miracles of Hanukkah was that little pach of shemen lasted for 8 days instead of 1 day. 8 minus 1 is 7. So why is Hanukkah 8 days? The miracle only lasted for 7 days, even though the lighting of the oil lasted 8 days, but the miracle was only 7 days because there was enough oil there to last for 1 day. The Beis Yosef brings several answers, but one of them is this idea. Because 1 day is commemorating the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put the law in nature that oil will burn. In short, the fact that oil burns at all, that there's a physical world with a consistency of laws that sustain life, that in itself is an ongoing kindness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us, a real miracle. The climax of this idea is, I think, what the Midrash Tanchuma says. The Midrash Tanchuma says, and the Midrash Tehillim as well, that in the future, in Messianic times, when Mashiach will come, Kol HaKorbanos betelim la'atid lavo. All the sacrifices will be cancelled. The only one that won't be cancelled is this Thanksgiving offering. Korban Toida ino batel. Why? Because in the future, all nature will become a miracle, and will be evident to us that it's a miracle. And the Midrash ends with, B'chol ha'chaim yidu chaseh Hashem. And all the live creatures will thank you, Hashem, for these obvious miracles. We are living in an extreme reality in our days, perhaps more than previous generations. We know we're approaching Pesach, and the Baal Haggadah tells us, already for thousands of years, B'chol dor v'dor oimdim aleinu lecha lo yiseinu, ve'akadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. In every generation, there's all kinds of nations that rise up to try to destroy us, and Hashem saves us from their hands. We are literally living this pasuk today, not as history, but as daily life, especially here in Eretz Yisrael. Thousands of missiles have been fired at our own towns and cities. The damage is heartbreaking, including the losses and injuries. They're very painful, yet we cannot turn a blind eye to the open miracles that are happening every day. Just this past Motzei Shabbos, what happened was unbelievable. A huge miracle where the missile went in between these 4 buildings in Arad. I was there just 3 days before. And the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated that it won't hit any of the buildings but fall in between, yes, it still caused a lot of damage and unfortunately a lot of injuries. But relatively speaking, it's a huge nes and huge miracle that's the only thing that happened. The fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated the Iron Dome to perform way beyond expectations, just at the right time, that's not a coincidence. That is another reason to give a Korban Toida. I'd like to end with a very simple story, but I think it brings out this whole idea. Rabbi Yaakov Cohen, an executive director of Yeshiva, once shared this following story at a school assembly right after his father passed away. His father, he said, was not a Rav or Rosh Yeshiva. He was just a very simple Jew, a Baal Tshuva, who came to Torah later in life. But he had a unique way of seeing the world. He was very sick with cancer, lying in the hospital bed receiving radiation treatment. His daughter sat beside him quietly and asked, "Daddy, what are you thinking about?" And he said the following, "I am thinking about the person who discovered that radiations can cure cancer and how much gratitude I have for that person. And he continued to say, I'm also thinking about the engineers who built these machines, who had the wisdom and skill that Hashem gave them to do so, and how much gratitude I have for them in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when I'm thinking about all of their teachers from primary school through graduate school who inspired them and helped them believe they can make a difference in the world, how much gratitude I have for them as well. We can learn so much from this person. He was dying of cancer, and yet when he was sitting down, all he was doing is tracing an infinite chain of gratitude through a radiation machine. The daughter said that it was at that point she realized if a person truly thinks about it, life becomes an endless stream of miracles, demanding to say thank you to the Ribbono Shel Olam and to the people. Not just the dramatic ones, not the wow, going beyond nature. But if you just take a couple of minutes of your day to think about all the things that are happening around us, just the fact that your body is working, the tree that's giving you an apple every day, that is exactly what Leah understood when she said, Hapam Odet Hashem. Have a good Shabbos.
This concludes another episode of the Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on the Prism of Torah.